Hello, scholars. Thank you for joining me for Chapter 8 of Balto of the Blue Dawn today. When we left off in Chapter 7, Jack and Annie had heard bells, thinking a dog team was coming at them, and then suddenly the bells stopped, and they could hear frantic, high pitched barking from the dogs. That was the end of Chapter 7. So, Chapter 8 today, on page 85, Catastrophe. Not a good sign. Uncle Joe's team of huskies answered with yowling and yelping. Something's wrong, cried Annie. Maybe they had an accident, said Jack. Let's check it out. Hike, yelled Annie. Straight ahead. The team took off. Annie drove the huskies through the dark toward the frantic barking. Soon they came to another team of dogs floundering in a snowdrift. Floundering. A sled had crashed and flipped over. The driver was trying to free his dogs. Whoa, Annie ordered. Stay. Jack planted the snow hook firmly in the ground to secure their team. Then he and Annie bowed their heads against the wind and trudged through the gale. Gunner? Shouted Jack. Gunner Kaysen? The driver waved and shouted, Yes! Oh, wow! We were sent to help you, cried Annie. Are you okay? Yes, just hit a bump back there, said the famous dog musher. The sled went flying and crashed on its side. Annie and Jack began helping Gunner. They grabbed each dog by its harness and one by one pulled them out of the soft snow. By the time the dogs were all on their feet again, Jack had counted 13 huskies. 13 huskies on Gunner Kaysen's team. Jack and Annie helped Gunner turn the sled upright, setting it back on its runners. Then, together, all three stomped on the snow with their boots, packing it down so the dogs could pull the sled out. So, definitely a catastrophe. Line out, Gunner commanded his team. Soon, the dogs were lined up in pairs in front of the sled, with a single dog in the lead. Do you know who that single dog is? Wait! Is that Balto? Shouted Annie. Yes, said Gunner. Annie hurried to the front of the line. Hi, Balto! Balto barked a greeting and leapt up to lick Annie's face. The bells on his collar jingled wildly. She laughed and hugged him. I've wanted to meet you for a long time, she shouted. Do you have the medicine for Gnome? Jack asked Gunner. Yes, the musher said, leaning over the sled. It's right here. Oh, no, no. No what? Said Jack. What's wrong? The package is missing, Gunner yelled. Missing? Said Jack. Where is it? Cried Gunner. Where is it? Where is it? Jack echoed. It was tied to the sled, shouted Gunner. Oh, this is a catastrophe. In the biting wind, the musher fell to his knees and frantically dug through the snow, looking for the medicine package. What's wrong? Annie called from the front of the line of dogs. Jack ran to her. He lost the medicine. It fell off his sled, he said. We have to help him find it. Wait, wait, said Annie. I'll bet Balto can find it. She crouched beside the lead dog and unhooked his tug line and neckline. So, scholars, think for a moment. Why is she unhooking Balto? She thinks he can find the medicine. No, don't unhook him, said Jack. We can't lose Balto, too. We won't lose him, said Annie. He can help. She grabbed the lead dog's head between her mittens and put her face close to his, saying words Jack couldn't hear. So can you picture that? She took Balto's head, right, in her hands, and they're face to face, and she's saying something to him. Jack can't hear what it is. Then she released Balto. Find the medicine. Find it now, Annie yelled. While Gunner crawled around in the snow looking for the package, Balto took off in the direction his team had come. With his nose to the ground, the husky trotted back down the trail. Let's follow him, Jack, cried Annie. Leaving Gunner and the rest of the dogs behind, she and Jack hurried after Balto. They trudged through the snowstorm after the eager dog, following the jingling of his collar bells. When Annie and Jack reached Balto, he was whining and digging through the snow. I think he found it, Annie shouted. Jack felt around in the wind-swept snow until he touched something soft and solid. He pulled a heavy fur-wrapped bag out of the snow and struggled to stand up with it. Great job, Balto! You found it! Shouted Annie. Gunner! Jack yelled. We found the package! But his voice didn't carry through the storm. Let's take it to him, he said to Annie. Balto started back the way they'd come, his collar bells jingling. Carrying the package of life-saving medicine, Jack followed Balto and Annie. Let me get a nice picture of that scene of Balto finding the medicine. When they reached Gunner's team, Annie quickly hooked Balto to the front of the line. Then she and Jack hurried to Gunner. The musher was still on his knees, not far from the sled, wildly shoveling through the snow with his hands. Gunner, it's okay, shouted Jack. We have the package. It was back there. It must have fallen out when you hit the bump. Balto found it, said Annie. Gunner gave a happy shout and staggered to his feet. Jack handed over the fur-wrapped package, and Gunner tied it tightly to his sled. You go ahead. We'll follow you, Jack shouted. We can help you if you need us again, said Annie. Oh, thank you, shouted Gunner Kaysen. I won't forget you. Thank you. Annie yelled goodbye to Balto. Then she and Jack hurried back through the whirling snow to their own sled. The huskies greeted them noisily. Ready, team, Jack yelled, pulling up the snowhook. You're going to follow Balto. Can I drive? Annie shouted. Sure. We can switch places at port safety if you want, said Jack. As he climbed into the basket, Jack thought about the port safety roadhouse. He wondered if Gunner planned to stop there. It would be weird to meet Ed all over again, as if for the first time. Annie stood on the runners and waited. Soon jingling bells could be heard. Moments later, Gunner's team dashed by. With Balto in the lead, all 13 huskies pulled the musher and his sled over the snow. As the jingling faded into the night, Annie shouted, "Hike!" The 8 huskies bolted forward and got back on the trail, dashing after Balto's team. As Jack bumped around in the basket, he held on to the sides and closed his eyes against the fury of the storm. It wasn't long, though, before he heard Annie shout, "Port Safety Roadhouse up ahead!" Jack opened his eyes and saw the log cabin. "Jack, look! Gunner kept going!" yelled Annie. "He didn't stop at the roadhouse." Keep following them," said Jack. "Gee!" Annie yelled, and swung her dogs away from the roadhouse. Oh, if she yelled gee, which way did they turn away from the roadhouse? To the right. Jack and Annie's huskies kept following the jingling bells of Balto as he and his team led the way north to Nome. Racing along the coast of the Bering Sea, Jack and Annie's team seemed even livelier and stronger than before. It was as if Balto was leading their team as well as his own. Guided by Balto's spirit, all 21 dogs flew over the flat shoreline. As they ran, the weather improved. The snow stopped falling, and the wind died down. Amazingly, in less than 3 hours, the blizzard had stopped completely. The sky had begun to clear. In the early gray dawn, Jack saw a church steeple in the distance. He saw lights flickering in the windows of houses. "We're back! We made it to Nome!" he cried. "Hooray!" said Annie. The sun was rising as they followed Balto's team into town. "We should take these guys back to Okie and Uncle Joe," said Annie. "You're right," said Jack. "Gunner's good now. The medicine's arrived." "Ha!" commanded Annie, and the dogs veered left and headed for the spit of land near the frozen sea. In the early light, the huskies stopped at Uncle Joe's shack. As the dogs whined and yelped, Okie flew out the front door. His uncle followed, hobbling on his crutch. Though exhausted, the dogs had enough energy to jump up and down and bark excitedly as their 2 friends greeted them with great joy. So, scholars, think about as this chapter ends, why is everyone seeming so joyful and so happy, right? Annie said, "Hooray!" The dogs are excited, right? Okie and Uncle Joe are joyful. What's going on that everyone's feeling so happy? There's a couple of things going on that would make people happy right now. All right, scholars, that is the end of chapter 8. Join me now back in the packet.